Hey Chirag, thanks for agreeing to do this. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Aviral. Look forward to having an engaging conversation. And as I said, that I really love what a junior VC does.
Awesome. Chirag, so would love to deep dive into the early days, early life, any early influences. What was it like growing up? Did you have any brush with entrepreneurship? If you could talk about that.
Yeah. So if I go back, this is third, fourth startup for me. I started or I came into entrepreneurship in 2014. And prior to that, was in banking, did investment banking, corporate finance with Yes Bank for 6 years. And at that point of time, it was not the bank which we know today. So it was always, at least the problems always intrigued me more than now the famed word entrepreneurship. So I think I got at least some sense of product management, technology when PhonePe was being launched in 2014, and I got some exposure to it being at Yes Bank, and that's where it started. And then I thought this is going to be fascinating, and this was those days when Mark Anderson used to say that software is going to eat the world, right? And here we are. I would say 6 months back it was true. Now everyone is saying again, saying do tech companies make profit? So we're going to go through this again. But 2014 I left, and thought I have a big passion for food. A lot of people look at me and say that I don't look like one, but I am a big time foodie, and I keep saying that I live for my next meal. And started this company called Ketchup, which was around finding out what is best to eat. I thought that this is a question which plagues everyone in their house, that what do I eat next?
It's still not solved, by the way. So
Still not solved.
yeah. I spent probably like 30 minutes figuring out what to order.
Yeah.
It is a real problem.
So our insight was that people don't look at naturally at restaurants. Just that the monetization way is that hence you start to search restaurant and a dish. It should be natural ways to look at a dish.
Right.
So can we aggregate and basis your needs, climate, weather inputs, and time of the day, etc. Can we recommend that this is what you should eat? So I think built out the technology that way nicely, scaled it.
It was what time frame? Which years?
This is 2014 to 17. So in between there was a food tech wave when Swiggy was born.
Right. The last time when hyperlocal got hot.
Correct. So, and in between, I would say that 2015 was a moment. And if I have to reflect back, I had done this exercise when I was shutting down when I was in the middle of selling this company. I did this exercise at what we could have done differently, right? We had built out a good team and started with 2 IIT Delhi co-founders and built out a fantastic team. So, and in between had came that, do we want to do food delivery, right? Swiggy was getting funded, was trying to scale. So there was an opportunity there because we were there in some 7-8 cities in India, getting close to 3 million users a month. So it was decent scale. People were looking for food, etc., etc. But I think we decided that, okay, we're going to be a meta search engine and trying to give traffic to Zomato, Swiggy, and let's say other world. And I think later on what it came out was that the unit economics don't make a lot of sense when you start to monetize it that way. The journey could have been very, very different if you would have turned in 2015 to become a delivery company. So I think that's where it started. So I did a lot of content community work in that startup. And then started to monetize it via these FMCG companies which are wanting to tap into food related audiences. So Nestle, PepsiCo, Dabur, etc., etc. You name, we were working with them and doing close to a couple of $1 million of ARR and then sold it to a content-based company in Delhi. So that's how it happened. And I was very clear that, okay, this is the life I enjoy. So I'm going to be here doing startups, and I'll probably start something of my own. Again, because culture changing and setting grounds up is, at least culture setting is very, very different if you enter a company a little late, right? Most these are early foundational blocks which typically can't be changed. It's tough. But then got this opportunity to, whenever you decide that, okay, this is what you want to do, there is an opportunity lurking somewhere.
Right.
Got this opportunity via, I know, 3-4 folks, and via them, led by Revant at Mosaic Wellness, who runs Mosaic Wellness now. He used to be at Kalari Capital at that point of time. So he introduced me to Colgate and Shantanu, who was running Bombay Shaving Company. And this was still a 30 odd people company at that point of time. And I thought that, okay, this might be fascinating, that I've done content community and I hadn't done commerce. So this might be a good stint to do commerce. And that's how it happened. I took the challenge and led online business right from marketplaces to direct to consumer, scaled them up. And frankly, if you would have met in Feb 2020, and if anyone would have asked that, are you going to do another startup, I would have said no, because we have now scaled this. There's a good PMF which was visible. We were now starting to get visible on all platforms. The sales, primary, secondary, everyone is going through. So there's no, at least, and I enjoyed decent equity in the company. So there was no, and not only equity, I think Shantanu being a great leader. So he gave me enough freedom to execute it my way. So it was one of those fantastic companies. I had no plans to quit. And then COVID happened, things changed. I was in the middle of running e-commerce, which was booming. And I was a merchant myself, seeing certain problem statements. I thought, this space is going to become big, and I know the problem statements. So is there something large which can be built here? So that's how GoKwik started. But largely, yeah, I've been in startups now almost 8.5 years, and this is the life I enjoy now.
I think you have to be a little crazy to be a startup founder. That's what I realized. So how did that craziness? I don't think the craziness ever left, probably in your case. It once you've done it, I think you won't leave. So how did that thought come when you were, at Bombay Shaving? Shantanu was a great guy. Spent some time with him. Um, what was the trigger for you? I know you understood it's a large opportunity, but the world was in this really chaotic place, right? Where people are like, hey, I should hold on to what I have. There's so much madness going around, and you're like, hey, I'll leave my job and start a company. How did that happen?
I don't think so that it's a crazy decision, by the way. I keep telling that it's more hyped than, or maybe we need to not look at our account balance every month. That's the only thing. If you change, I think it becomes a very easy decision.
Right.
So start looking at your account balance every 3 years. It's a very easy decision. It's a very easy decision, just that you need to have 3 years. Sorry?
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, at least I follow that.
Yeah. Change the number of, change the frequency of looking at your account balance. And it starts seeming to make sense.
Dopamine rush, right? I don't know how many of us actually need the money. Right? So at least for our basic needs.
Correct.
So it's a rush which you get, and then it starts to go away. So I'm always intrigued by, and when you start to do away with that, and then you start to look at the world, you'll always find problems all around, and then you have to pick and choose which one are worth solving, which one are good GTMs, and how do you build a business on top of it. So that exercise itself is so self-rewarding. That I'm at least very fascinated by that. When you start to go deeper and understand that how truly capitalism works, how economic cycles are actually display of human emotions to the best way. I have seen, 6 months back, everyone was gung-ho about every company in the world that this is going to work out, etc., etc. And now we are seeing the opposite, where even established companies, everyone is
Like,
just shying away, saying
chalega
that
nahi.
this is not going to exist.
Right.
Not only funded companies or a company at our stage, but companies such as Twilios, etc. of the world are just trading at 4x of revenue. So we've gone the other way. So
Right. The pendulum always swings, I think, to extremes. But I agree with you. I think your observation is interesting. So, I've had in my journey as an investor, I've seen, a variety of things kind of being disproved as stereotypes. Um, the first is I don't think founders are not um, are crazy risk takers like the way you were describing. I think you assess risk really well, and then you know what risk you're going to work with, right? And I think a lot of people believe that founders are like extremely high risk appetite and they do it. I've actually seen that founders tend to measure risk before they make that call, like you were saying. The other is interesting. I've always felt like taking that leap is a very big decision. Um, I've not done it myself, so maybe that also is a reason why I think that way. But the founder friends I speak to, they feel like at some point I'm just like taking the leap of faith and jumping off, which is why I said it's at some point just a little irrational. But I do get your point, and I understand where you're coming from, and I think that framework of looking at your bank balance is very practical and actionable. And I completely agree with your dopamine hit of the bank balance. I think they call it different things, golden handcuffs, dopamine hit. We've been like programmed to get this drip every month that you got this, stay here.
yep.
That's fascinating.
I
And
think the way to, just to add, I think to the point you said, that how do you take the leap of faith? I think MVPs are applicable everywhere in our journey, not only in the product or in the tech world,
correct.
right? So, like for example, I've moved cities. So for a lot of people, this is a big decision. I did it in 10 days. So
Okay. How did you do it?
just get a flat on rent and start to move, right? Uh, it's
MVP
it's a,
life.
it's a very easy decision. Why do you want to buy a house?
Right.
Buying a house becomes a big decision,
Right.
right? Once you want to get to used to a city, is their city okay with you? There are so many other variables, right? A lot of people told me Bangalore has pollens, etc., etc. Will your body adapt to it? How do I know? I
Right.
can't assess it by sitting in Delhi.
Correct.
There is unfortunately no test for it.
Right.
So I need to be here. Easier, get a flat and get yourself in. And 6 months, you'll get to know the city. You have the answer.
Yeah, if it works or not.
You can
Absolutely.
always switch this flat for a expense.
I agree. MVP life. Uh, I think with AJVC also it's been lots of MVPs. Maybe even this is an MVP to something. Who knows?
We kind of over index on that every decision is a one-way door decision.
Yes,
Mostly it's not.
reversible. Correct. Very few irreversible decisions in life. I agree with you. I actually have started applying that framework a lot. Is this decision reversible? If it is, then you don't need to spend so much time thinking. But if it's irreversible, then it's a. And I think very few decisions in life which fall in
We could
that.
always break them down and make
Correct.
those irreversible also
Also into
into.
reversible.
Correct.
Correct.
So break them down, convert them into their.
Correct.
So that's how at least I think it works for me.
No, no. I think it's a good way to think. Good way to think. Life is a lot of decisions, micro, macro, and I think having good decision making frameworks is super important. I don't know if you read this book called Thinking in Bets.
Yeah, of course.
So it's good.
It's a hard one to implement.
Hard one to
It's a
implement.
fascinating read.
Fascinating read. I actually think that people know what they need to do in life, they just don't do it. I'm increasingly starting to believe that. A lot of people who talk about habits and better life, they're saying what I already know or what you already know. It's just that
Implementation is tough.
repetition and maybe packaging it better. I think if we just listen to our parents more, maybe life.
So I think it's hard also, that once you start to realize that you process information in form of stories well,
Right,
right? But that's a hack,
right.
right? So we like to say that analogies,
Hmm.
but or for example, you use the word framework. Framework will also have its limitations. We will not,
Correct,
we if we get used to it, then we'll apply it everywhere.
correct.
So then how do you move yourself back to a widespread written format where you have to actually think hard? And I
Hmm.
think Amazon does this really well.
Correct.
Form of
I agree. I love writing because it's a naked form of content. And what I mean by that is, if it's good, you know it. There's no embellishment, right? It's purely good or not, right? For in videos and image, audio, you have gestures and you can add some more layers to it. But I think it's form of thought, it's probably the most powerful because of that, text. Um, but yeah, interesting. And I know we took a interesting tangent, but this was useful to what I was going to ask next. What did you adopt from your previous journey as a founder here, and what were those frameworks? Not these frameworks. What were those models that you came up with, or thought processes that were wrong the first time or didn't work the first time and now work, which would probably be helpful for a founder who's doing for the first time, doesn't know. I think that would help.
I think that's a very valid question. One is that get into a space which is supposed to have a lot of tailwinds. That's number one. Uh, because, and if especially for if you're building a VC funded business, right? That might not be true for bootstrapped businesses, but at
Right,
least for VC funded businesses, because any VC would want to put in investment on a large outcome, right?
right.
That's how the law of
Economics,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
So I think, and what you said, the where entrepreneur or founder takes a call is that all existing big spaces are already taken, right? So largely what you are taking a bet on is that this space, which is today niche, is going to become large over time, right? So, and there are multiple such. There is no dearth of these opportunities. They're massive ones. Once you start to have an eye for it, you will figure out that what are the opportunities. That's one, I think, and at least you should not be in a headwind business that it's shrinking, and then it becomes you're fighting the market, and fighting the market is hard. It's painful. That's one. Two, I think getting the right team. I would say that I've got the teams right in most of the cases.
Hmm.
Didn't get the probably the headwind tailwind, or didn't get the large opportunity business mix in the first go. But getting the team right, I think, is super critical. Don't think about uh, at least doing it everything yourself. I used to be blamed about this a lot, and I think Indians are very used to living in a bias for action culture, wherein we get hands on very quickly, which is
Right,
great, right? When you are starting up, it's great. But hustle doesn't mean that I'm always doing my hands dirty. There has to be a time for going back, reflecting, and getting the right team in place so that they can execute, empowering them. I think it is a little hard because we are so tuned to doing, and I am also of that breed. That if given an opportunity, I would want to spend like midnight oil on solving a problem,
right,
solving a problem for a client. I really get pain, won't get night sleep.
right,
But then I was coached on this, that this is not scalable.
right,
Uh, you will become the bottleneck in the company. How will you scale? So either define a role for yourself, that I will do this, and then get someone else to do your job, or choose sides. So I think, and it comes invariably.
hmm.
Then I think the another one is I think the product market fit question.
Hmm.
Uh, that how do you ascertain whether you have PMF or not?
Right.
Nothing will appear in the sky and which will tell you that
you have PMF.
yes. So it's and I think there are some very, very top level matrices. For example, if you have a inbound going in, then of course, and the more inbound more than you can service, then of course that's a good indicator of PMF.
Right.
But I think trying to differentiate between value versus growth hypothesis in early days, spending time on more on PMF side in the 0 to 1 stage, and I like that. Very, very fascinating in terms of spending time there, spending time with clients, that what do you want, and then figuring out. And I think is if we are on that thing, we have this internally that how do you separate problem discovery and problem solution. So
that's interesting.
I think both shouldn't be done together.
Right.
Right.
By the same team, different teams too. Does the same team do it at different times, or do different teams do it?
So anyone can do both the pieces, just that they need to be separated when you're thinking. Right. For example, the usual stuff is that you will have a PS session,
right,
wherein people will come and let's say suggest you some solutions of certain problems. What we typically do is we typically shun away the PS session and say that let's spend time on problem discovery first. And we'll not have a session saying first half an hour problem discovery, then have the next half an hour problem solution. And at least for good large problems, because if we get this wrong, then the solutions are definitely wrong. If we are not solving the right problem, then we will see the problem in terms of scale, in terms of complexities, etc., etc. So it's you're putting the entire organization time on a problem which was not worthy of solving, or which the solution was not this way. So I have realized that you separate problem discovery to problem solution is a great way of looking at things.
Understood. Can you give an example of that? So for example, you would do X as problem discovery.
Example being, we have a product which doesn't work for merchants who are less than 100 transactions a day. Small, right? We know anecdotally and by speaking to merchants. Now, you want to build out a product, let's say or let me give that example for a large Excel enterprise client, right? Wherein today our offerings don't support them. Now, how do you go about speaking to them and understanding what all problems do they go with? And you would not go with the lens of that, okay, we have these products, and now ask them leading questions that, okay, do you need this, etc., which is the wrong way of doing the research. But you would go with a very problem discovery mindset and ask them, what are your problems? So that's one. List down all problems and then come back internally. And then also people will debate only on whether we have discovered the right problem. Basically ask 5 whys. That have we got it to the right level? That are we really solving the right problem, or are we really solving a symptom? Right? If you keep solving symptom, it will keep appearing again, or it will become an ops problem. Right? The one hack which we all use is that whenever our laptops are not working, we'll restart it. But it's not solving the root problem. It's the symptom.
Understand.
Businesses, you can imagine that if you start solving it that way, what will happen is that you'll have an army of ops who will solve it.
Correct.
The product is not scalable because you've not solved the core problem.
Right.
So going deeper and looking at the problem from that aspect. And once you've got the hang of that this is the core problem, then you look at the solution that, okay, what can I solve? And then marry it with business, that what kind of business can be built on top of it.
So now to transition into our topic, we've spoken a lot about frameworks, and now let's talk a bit about how you applied them and built your business. So our topic is, of course, building during the pandemic for this episode. Can you start off by telling our listeners about what exactly the problem is that GoKwik is solving?
Got it. So, as I was saying to Aviral as well, that when we started GoKwik, the one thing which was clear was that e-commerce is going to happen outside of Amazon, Flipkart.
Yeah.
So that became clear. And then there are bunch of problem statements in the e-commerce domain, right? And I like to give this as that there are 4 broad buckets in e-commerce, or 5 in fact. Discovery, selection, conversion, retention, and then there is fulfillment. Right. Now, if you start to look at it from that point of view, you will find many problems, right? Fulfillment, we know, has massive shipping, aggregation problems. Everyone wants to deliver quickly. We all know the impact of that. Discovery, of course, is a CAC problem. How do you discover people? Retention is a big problem. And you go deeper, you'll find many problems in there with respect to sectors. So, for example, in fashion, there is a huge returns problem, right?
So you took this kind of big approach. You looked at these buckets and kind of refined it and then zeroed in on conversion rates. Okay.
Correct. So we looked at all of them, that, okay, what could be the starting point? And we pinned ourselves to saying that this is a company which is going to solve shopping experience problems.
Okay.
In fact, there is an interesting, at least in VC circles, that people say that there are 2 companies. One is GoKwik and the other one is Safecart. Earlier we were known as Safecart. We thought that shopping experience is going to be about safety, all of those things. But then when we went to the market, we realized that shopping experience long term is going to be always be about swiftness, experience. So hence GoKwik. So if you see our earlier decks, they all mentioned Safecart. So and largely, I think, shopping experience problems, and that too also we validated with customer, wherein when we spoke to them, we realized that everyone started their experience on Amazon, Flipkart. And when they went outside to, let's say, Nykaa, First Cry, Shopper Stop, they realized that it's not the same. Hence, they were going back again to Amazon, Flipkart. So these merchants were losing customers. Customers are not getting this kind of selection there. So multiple such problems were there. And we thought that, okay, this is going to be fascinating. The only thing which we wanted to validate was this space is going to become big. So that is a founder call, that, okay, we are betting on that e-commerce is going to become big. And in fact, today, companies like us empower that this space will become big, right? So we will play a critical role in ensuring that we solve some of these larger problems which companies independently might not be able to solve, and empower them. So that's how it started. And from a range of things, those are at least the our canvas in which we are going to play over time.
That makes sense. And it sounds so easy when we talk about it. Okay, you look at this high level, but how do you actually get a customer? I can't imagine going to a customer and telling them, I want to solve everything. I don't know where I'm going to focus. So how do you kind of translate that into actually, doing an MVP, getting the first few customers?
You're right. So while theoretically it sounds good that do the top-down analysis, get the sectors right. But coming to, I think, and then there is this bottom-up thing wherein you go to the customer and identify what are the problems statements which they're going through. And I think with us, it was a little bit easier because I came from that world. Yeah. I was the customer. I knew that what are the real problems which are there, and hence started with 3-4 MVPs and seeing that what sticks, right? And from my e-commerce experience point of view, we also did some MVPs on solving for design related ad which could increase ad click-through rates. Those kind of problems also. Those MVPs didn't scale. What we see today is the MVP which is scaled. So nobody remembers the amount of MVPs we tried at that point of time. I think I think if you, at least my view is that in India ecosystem, if you know the right early movers, and if you approach them, they're very, very happy to help you out, give you access to, if you're solving a legit problem, they'll give you access to whatever you want. And I think it's just about figuring out those few early movers. Unfortunately, in our country, I would say if Western market is 20% early movers, I think we are 2-3% early movers. So it's a little hard to find those clients who really know what the real problem is, who will empathize, also will be able to openly share, and also will give you access to run the MVP. Otherwise, I would say run an MVP which doesn't involve the entire funnel, do it outside and then prove there and then come inside.
It makes sense. But I mean, that's almost counterintuitive for me. You'd say 2-3% would be early movers, especially considering that you're looking at e-commerce companies. I mean, how do you identify these early movers? Any advice or tips for listeners?
I think these are very anecdotal experiences. We would have probably, this is one of those fire bullets and what sticks. Yeah, we would just have multiple conversations with multiple people and see. And this is one of those who wants to move fast, just go with them. Right. You can't force people. So it's one of those stages where you will have 25 such conversations going. Let's see who's moving fast with you, who's actually wanting to solve the problem. And once those are the early movers, right? I don't have a clear
No, but that can make sense. You see who actually reacts well, and then you kind of move with it. And wanted to come a bit back to our topic, which was the pandemic and starting during COVID. How did that factor into your problem solving? Obviously, a lot changes during an event like that, and did that kind of help to reinforce your belief that okay, e-commerce is going to be huge, or was it totally independent of?
I think, for example, I was sitting in July, August 2020, and I didn't see that e-commerce is going to go like what we've seen. But of course, if you take a long macro view, it was clear that this is a sticky behavior, and as younger generation kicks in, they will adopt this more than others. So, and if you look at the past also, so we were 2014, we were a $5 billion market. This 2021 became a $60 billion market, e-commerce India, right? So 12 times growth. Yeah. And if you take that lens, this 60 is going to become 350, 360 in next 5-7 years. So that way, large macro trend is there. Now you need to pick your battles that, okay, how do you go about in terms of solving for if this space is going to become large? So that's there. And I think we have done the space has done the hard work in terms of, as it is said that the first million is tough or first unicorn is tough. So I think we've done the hard work in terms of e-commerce growth. Next 5-7 years would be easy in terms of growth. The first early wins are important. And if you were asking this question from an org point of view, it's massively difficult to build a company remotely. I think there are pros and cons to it. And I still believe that we are a remote first company, but the answer is not either way. The answer is probably midway. The answer is hybrid. Going daily to office is also a waste of time. The amount of time, at least in India infrastructure, you spend commuting. And staying fully remote is also
doesn't work always, right? Hit or miss.
So I think the answer is somewhere in between, and it works beautifully for people who are, let's say, in the zone of people who know what to do. We like to call this as that people who either do what they're asked to do or who plan and do. Those are the two people who works very, very beautifully for them, who don't have to manage teams.
Yeah.
Once you get into that domain of getting work done through others or getting to know about what direction are you heading, that's where you need more marrying of thoughts, more collaborative thinking. Those teams should be meeting more often than the other ones. So that's how we think. And hence, whenever there is a new senior hire, you will see that all teams are traveling to one place, spending together. They get to know the senior, how do they operate, etc., etc. So but I don't have a playbook for this. We are also learning on the way. If there are a few companies which we look up to, GitHub, etc., which have done this really well, I think we will still take a year or so to figure out that, okay, what is the exact working model in terms of scaling a company, but we've decided that we're going to be remote.
That's an interesting insight, and actually brings me to my next question. I mean, you guys have grown pretty quickly, more than 150 people in 2 years, and it's been remote, like you said. How do you instill a sense of culture? How do you kind of keep everyone together? Physical meetings is part of it, but remotely as well. I mean, are there a few initiatives that you guys have done, and how do you make
I
that
think we
scale?
have a specific person in the team who is responsible for engagement activities. So her job is, and I think she does it fantastically well, in terms of, let's say, if IPL is going on, so we will have a prediction box every night.
Nice.
Some of those things, chai pe charcha, coffee hangouts, etc., etc. So we have figured out different formats. I think one which we are about to release is, and I think the Intuit in US has that, which is fantastic failures on Fridays at 4 p.m.
Nice.
So anything wacky which you find globally, which is there, which is a different content theme, which will get everyone in, and then anyone can speak. So one is these kind of themes. So we promote so that there is a event at least happening every 2-3 days. That's one. And I think from a culture standpoint of view, at least we celebrate a lot in terms of merchant ownership, merchant empathy and ownership. So we haven't at least, and we are true believers of that a culture is not something which, let's say, I would want to be implemented. It's one of those things which I am not there and people are feeling. So we want to truly live with it rather than painting walls and saying that okay, this is what we are. It's one of those brand things, right?
Yeah. No, but actually, but I think you need to make a more conscious effort during, if everyone's virtual, right, to kind of have some of these events and to think about it. And I love some of the ideas that you guys have picked up from other places and try to adopt.
We continue to do these 0 to 1 MVPs. If you don't, and there would be a list of the things which have not worked. So we've tried to
you just drop it if it doesn't work.
Yeah, move it.
So MVP everything in life. And I mean, transition to kind of the other side of that. When you're hiring, what are some of the traits that you're looking for?
Yeah, that's a that's a good question. I think from a hiring point of view, of course, we don't ask this question, where do you come from? What is your home location, etc., etc. So that's one question which you don't ask for.
Okay.
But otherwise, initially we used to look for a lot of, at least today also, we value a lot of will over skill. But in initial days, we had a lot of generalist people who used to move around. And this was one of the stage of the company also, wherein you wanted people to wear 10 hats. And, tomorrow one person was doing finance, fundraise. And on the other, during the day, he was doing customer support, customer success as well. So those were the days, I think. And now we look at least hiring specialists who know, if you figured out that, okay, this is what we would need long term, then let's get more specialists there. And in specialists, we would want to look at the complexity of the assignment, what they've done. And we look at, different traits. One is subject specific. So for example, if you are joining in product, then product specific jobs. And then in addition to, let's say, ownership, deep dives, some of the other skills, and going deeper by level on the complexity, that if you're giving examples, then are you giving examples which are complex enough for this loan, right? So it's the same way, like we know how algebra works, but when it comes down to real differentiation, integrations, and some of those stuffs, so that's where you would scale if you are if you've done this previously, etc., etc.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think that's some of the we've heard those kind of themes quite often, that you get to this point in a company where you need to move from generalists to specialists. And when is that usually like right after you find product market fit, or is there a certain point at which you need to make that transition? Or how do you kind of know that, now that you've probably seen it happen a few times?
I think, yeah, at least the way I look at it is that if founders start to spend too much time on things which people can do much better than them than us.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So
You just
I
have
think
to feel the
we
pain and you fix it.
we need to look at that lens very, very often. That am I the right person for doing this? I might enjoy it, but am I the right person for doing this? There are better skilled people, and it's also a function of that. All, at least I believe that with people who have goodwill, all skills are teachable. It's a function of time. You need to give them time; they will learn.
Yeah.
Do you want to also? Are you in the mode of valuing money over time or time over money? That's dependent on the cycle which you are in, right?
Yeah.
If you have more money in the bank, then you will value time over money. Yeah. So that's the way to look at it.
No, makes sense. I want to take a step back and quickly talk. You spoke earlier on your journey about how you thought about e-commerce as a big industry and obviously a lot of growth, but you have to pick your battles. And so just wanted to kind of double click on that a bit. What is your USP? What distinguishes you from the competition? And yeah, how did you kind of land on it and build it out?
So largely, we believe, I think globally in the last, I think year, we saw a lot of fame for checkout as a proposition.
Yeah.
At least I would say that, and from day one, I think we've maintained that we are an e-commerce enablement company. Checkout happens to be one of the products which we have. So we will continue to solve for merchants in a very, very deep way. That's what we understand. So one, we understand e-commerce deeply, and two, we know how to solve problems which are deep from a technology data science point of view. So that's our core, and these trends will keep coming and going in terms of checkout being famed, or some other thing will come up in a year or so, because that's how trends work. But largely we are in this domain of solving for large, deeper e-commerce problems which plague India specific. We understand India as a space. So, for example, people haven't taken a shot at solving cash on delivery problems in the way we did, and it's a tough problem to solve for. And at least I learned it hard way that let's solve tougher problems. Easier problems are easily copyable. So let's go after.
Problem, it's hard for people to copy you. Yeah.
Because there is no one silver bullet solution, right? You'll have to build 100 other deep products.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And it better be worthwhile if you're solving it for 10 years, right? So if you're building a single product, you will run out of steam in a year, and somebody larger will always be there in the industry who will want to copy it.
And just one more question, kind of following up on that. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, for people who are maybe listening to this episode? You've spoken about all these big problems, any big problems that you think people should tackle next? Any upcoming trends that you think are interesting?
Massive. If you ask me for a trends, this e-commerce trend is secular. We might see a little bit of slowdown in growth this year. By slowdown, I would mean that we will not see a 200% growth year on year, but we'll continue to see high growth from, if we look at it from a decade point of view, right? So that's one. And if you start to look at this space, India is going to have massive opportunities, whether it's social commerce. I think that nobody has cracked social in India from a space point of view. So social, conversational commerce, WhatsApp is India specific, right? So conversational commerce could be big. And then if you go deeper into e-commerce, many problems. Retention is a big problem. CAC, we know, is a big problem in our country. Now, at least with the at least some sense of downturn being there, people are starting to focus on retention as another metric. Earlier, it was only growth via new customers. So that's become an interesting problem. I can go on for hours. There are many, many, many problems to be solved there.
No, I think it's a good segue into, what's next for GoKwik. So you've had a good start and, good platform to build on. What is next? I completely agree with the e-commerce trend, secular. Directionally, at least it will go up, and probably not grow as fast, but it's obviously going to grow. There'll be a pullback to the mean, and the graph will obviously continue. But what's next for GoKwik? What's in the pipeline? Where are you going to spend time on?
So as I said that conversion is going to be our theme, wherein we are going to go deeper because we still feel that there are a lot of problems to be solved there in different spaces. So, and if you look at the whole world, everyone is working towards getting consumers to convert. So if you solve problems there, I think there are from a reward point of view, it's very, very meaningful. So that's going to be attack one area, which will continue to go deeper. And since now we have a very good network of brands as well as a shopper network, so it becomes very meaningful for our merchants also to solve some of the problems which are very difficult when you're starting a business from a flywheel data point of view. So we are in that unique position of solving for them now. So that's one. And of course, over time, we go towards retention. We go towards discovery as a space. And there also, we would want to be in more partner approach. We would want to evaluate at least build by partner approach, not fixated to that we want to build everything on our own. We are not one of those companies. We totally realize that there are limitations to it's not a skill question. I keep saying this to my team also, that you should not take it on yourself that we are partnering with someone. That doesn't mean that we can't build it. It's a question of what market needs now, and we already have our plate full. So either we drop something from here. So you will see us being very, very active on becoming partners with a lot of companies and building together, solving meaningful problems. And then I think we would want to explore some international waters in 12-18 months from now. So we see we have been approached by a lot of people at least in Southeast Asia, Middle East, to solve some of their problems which are of similar nature. So that's where I think it is headed.
I love the conversation because I feel like you are someone who thinks very deeply. And it brings me to my last question. What's some unfiltered feedback that you've received in your journey that changed the way you thought about things? I'm sure you've received a lot of feedback, but maybe one that really stood out for you.
I think
honest best. I mean, like.
No, I've not filtered anything on the at least on your thing at the moment. So I think one which I have realized is that, and I think a lot of people in hindsight, I can say a lot of people have told to me is that growth solves for most things. So as a founder, it's an important thing that we continue to go for growth. But growth is, if I double click on it, that the growth is the painful, but is self-healing.
Right. That's awesome.
It is not easy, once you get it also, then supporting it is, I have seen my teammates go through it, wherein we've had mental breakdowns, sleepless nights, their parents saying, what are you guys doing? So it's not easy because running with a MVP product, and you will find that typical challenges in every market. So how do you ensure that everyone is going towards that single goal, growth? And then it starts to solve for, you will have painful moments where people will burn out. We still today, our HR team struggles in terms of fulfilling our requests, in terms of getting people on board. But we just, and I think in that, our job is to ensure that are we fighting the right battle? Right. So there can be.
That's awesome.
So
that's a good view of things. Growth solves all problems, but growth is painful as well. Perhaps it's self-healing. That's interesting. You're solving a problem by giving yourself more problems, but they eventually solve themselves. So super. Thanks a lot, Chirag, for your time. Love the conversation. Thank you everyone for tuning in.